business is, sorry. All right, we're calling the meeting to order. It's now 6:31. First order of business is present to speak. So if you would like to say something, just unmute yourself and introduce yourself, and we'd love to hear from you. All right, present to speak, anyone?
Catherine, could
Yep.
I have a couple minutes if you don't mind?
Well, usually,
We can wait for the public. That's fine.
yeah. Let's just give it another second here.
Sure.
Public to speak, anyone want to speak up?
I just got a text from Mike. He's going to be a few minutes late.
Okay, thank you. And Peter is not going to make it tonight, so. All right, let's move on. Chairperson report.
Oh,
Oh, sorry. I thought that's what you wanted to say. Was that
no,
what-
no, that's not what I wanted to say.
Okay.
I
Is it
noticed
on
that
the
the meeting with the state of Connecticut, OSCGR, whatever it is, was a virtual meeting.
Yeah, this is off topic, Ralph, so I'm not sure. Does it tie into any one of our agenda items, Ralph? That we can discuss at that point?
Actually, probably not.
Under present to speak, does it matter though?
It shouldn't.
I don't know. That's a good question for Erica. Erica, does the present to speak have to be someone outside of the building committee? Oh, she's on.
Sorry, I'm just struggling on my phone. Listen, he's a member of the public. I defer to the chair. It's typical the board would conduct their business. So I'm going to defer to you as the chair.
It is not connected with an agenda item. It has to do with something that happened prior to this meeting.
Okay, I mean, say what you got to say, Ralph. Go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, back to this has to do with the meeting with the state where Catherine was present.
Yeah.
I believe that Mr. Pellman was present. And I suspect that Mr. Stevens was present.
As a superintendent, yes.
The meeting was held in a virtual format. And my question for everyone, I guess, is since it was a virtual meeting, why could not that have been done in a webinar format where those members of this committee that would have liked to have listened in been present for that meeting? Is there any particular reason why that couldn't have been done that way? And can it be done that way in the future?
Both great questions. I'm not sure if that meeting was recorded. Unfortunately, I can't ask Phil, but how about if I get those answers for you and I'll get back to you?
No, that would be fine. I just think if we're able to attend and we are members of the school building committee, obviously you don't want a free-for-all conversation. I get that. And if you want to restrict participation in that meeting by limited only to the chair, the superintendent, and the OPM, that's fine. I would just like to hear the questions and hear the answers firsthand. It's not that I don't trust anyone. It's just called trust but verify. And to hear how the questions were asked and answered, I think is very enlightening for those of us who were following this very closely.
Yes, Ralph. And we did actually take minutes from that meeting. I'm not sure if they're final yet, but we can certainly share those meeting minutes with the rest of the committee. And I can do that via email.
I understand that, but minutes do not always capture everything that was said in any meeting. Our minutes do not reflect every bit of conversation, nor should they. So I think being present for the meeting is a lot more enlightening than simply reading minutes. Just my opinion. And I would
Okay.
like to attend the next one if there is one.
Okay, thank you. But I can share those meeting minutes with the building committee, so. All right, thank you, Ralph. I'm gonna go to chairperson report. So we do have a new member here tonight. Let's welcome Christopher Tolona. And Christopher,
everybody.
if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, your experience, and how excited you are to be on our committee.
Couldn't be more excited. No,
Liar.
I am happy to be here, happy to be of service if I can be. I am a special education teacher at Hall Memorial School. I've been teaching for about 15 or 16 years now, and was just given an opportunity to kind of be involved in something, and I took it. So like I said, happy to be here and happy to be of service.
Excellent. Well, welcome and thank you. It'll be a little bit of a learning curve, I'm sure, as we've been doing this for almost 1.5 years now. Lots of information, but the best resource I think would be to start fresh back on January 26th of 2021 for our first meeting that we had, and start reading those meeting minutes. Certainly talking to Phil or any one of us offline for history would be helpful too, if you know, if that makes it a little quicker transition.
That sounds great. I'll do that.
Erica.
All right, thank you.
Erica.
Thank you. I just quickly, first welcome, Chris. Do you prefer Chris or Christopher?
Yeah, Chris is fine.
Chris, okay. Well, welcome. Just a little bit of housekeeping. I know the Board of Selectmen appointed you on Monday. And so typically a communication will go out to you, and I assume you probably haven't received it yet. That tells you need to go to the town clerk's office to be sworn in. So that actually has to happen before you can vote. You can still participate in the meeting, but in order to vote, you would have to be sworn in. So that can be done in the town with the town clerk, and we'll make sure we get that communication over to you.
All right, sounds good.
If you have, I don't know if you have access to your school email, but we can also send you an emailed copy of that letter if you reach out or share with Phil or Brenda another way of communicating, whether it be personal email, and we'll get that over to you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Erica. So next order of business, we actually have to skip. It's approval of the meeting minutes. Unfortunately, we didn't get the meeting minutes filed in time for tonight's vote. So we'll put it on the table for our next meeting. Item 5, communications. I'm not sure if there was any, actually there was no communications other than what I received from Ralph, which we will discuss further into the meeting minutes. And yeah, I don't think we have any subcommittee meetings that we've had any updates from any of our subcommittees. So next item, old business community outreach task group. We did have, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ralph. Want to give an update? on
We're
the
talking about the
community
minutes
outreach?
of July 20, or am I
Yeah.
missing something? Wait a minute.
July 20th, yeah.
I have those. I don't understand why anyone else wouldn't. They were filed July 11.
How do you file July 11th for the 20th meeting?
That's a good question. I'm looking at the stamp here on received by the town clerk. It says July 11. But the minutes are July 6th. All right. Are you talking about, you're talking about a meeting of the 20th, correct?
Yes.
So I'm the one who's confused. Never mind. I'm sorry.
Well, you almost had me for a minute there. I've been.
I wasn't trying to. I just was a little confused.
No worries. All right. So where was I? Get back to this here. Yeah, so so for communications, the The only communication I got was from Ralph, which is regarding an item that's further down in the minutes, which we will talk about. I know as far as communications, I don't think any of our subcommittees have met, so there's no updates on that. And then old business, community outreach task group. So this is in relation to creating a YouTube / presentation to be shared with the public to give an update of where we came from, what we've done, and where we are at today with our school building committee. We're still working on it. We did have our meeting last week to discuss some ideas, and I thought it was very successful. Ralph is also on that committee. So Ralph, do you want to add anything to what I just said?
No, I think we're still trying to piece together exactly what it is that we're going to put out to the public. So other than that, I really don't have anything more to add to it.
All right, thank you. So this task group was created because it's intended to be a task that we're going to complete in a short duration versus a subcommittee, which is typically an ongoing, continual effort. Next item is new business, the Hall Middle School deed and legal opinion. So this is a topic that was discussed in our OSCGR review meeting with the head folks at OSCGR. They are from the state, and they're the ones that review any grant applications for any new project really that has to do with a school. They, in our conversations with them, they recommended that we get a legal opinion on the current deed for Hall. It is a unique situation. If any of you don't know what the deed says, there's a lot of legal jargon in it, which I'm sure a lot of us can't, figure out like what it actually says. But there is a piece of it that's pretty clear. And that piece says that Hall Middle School is owned by the town as long as it's used as a school. And so the state, when the state read that piece of the deed, they had some concerns about funding and had requested or recommended that we get a legal opinion on what that actually means. And so I sent out an email to the school building committee members to take a look at a motion that I prepared for seeking legal guidance from Haller and Sage. And the motion reads as follows: to proceed with the legal opinion of Haller and Sage Law Firm to review and interpret the existing Hall Memorial School deed with the town of Willington to determine the legal opinion of the deed's content and the total estimated amount of $600. Again, this is not a formal motion as of yet, but I wanted to just review it with everybody and have a discussion before we take a vote. So I'm going to pull up quickly the motion here. Can you guys all see that? No, you can't right now. Everybody, so I'll formally make the motion and
We can't see it. I can't see it.
you can't see it yet?
No, it just says you're starting screen sharing.
Oh, I'm still circling. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to share it, guys. I'm sorry. I emailed it to everybody, but I can read it again if, why don't I do that? So I'm going to make a motion to proceed with the legal opinion of Haller and Sage Law Firm to review and interpret the existing Hall Memorial School deed with the town of Willington to determine a legal opinion of the deed's content and the total estimated amount of $600. That's the end of the motion. Is there a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Thank you. We'll go with Mike for a second. And discussion. Gary,
Could you just, Erica, just tell us a little bit about what in particular the state wanted us to get confirmation on, and what, you know, just a little bit more about the purpose of doing this.
so they wanted us to get a legal opinion on whether or not that limitation or that language in there, it's under a quit claim deed, first of all, and then there's a piece of it that, what do they call it, an exception or
Rescission clause.
is that what it's called, the rescission?
Yes.
It's called, I have it right here, just give me a second. Yeah, it's condition. I mean, it doesn't specifically say it's a rescission clause, Ralph, but it does.
In essence, that's what it is.
Okay, so it says, I'll just read you the part. And I think we talked about this last week as well.
Catherine, is it just that, I mean, I think we know what it is, right? It's that if it's not used as a school, it goes back to Hall Foundation. Are they
Right.
asking us to, they basically are asking us for legal confirmation on that piece of it? Is that what we've been asked to do? Or
Yeah,
Mike,
they
stand up.
want our legal opinion. We actually asked them what their legal thought about it. And then they said, we would like to hear from your legal to hear what they have to have, what they think about it.
Okay, I see Mike's hand is up. Maybe he has some
Yeah,
more
Mike,
info.
If I remember Phil's comment, it was that the discussion was that this was written some 80 years ago, maybe, or I don't remember the date, 60.
1956.
And that they were looking for a legal opinion that was more in modern terms to make sure that whatever wording, if those understandings in the legal world had migrated over the years, what it means today. And basically so that the state understands if there's any risk to the deed when they're applying taxpayer money to that property, to the project.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, there's
Great memory,
language.
Mike. I'm trying to find it, the language. But it basically says what Mike was just saying with the limiting it to be used as a school. Any other discussion, Ralph?
But I think we need to be a little bit more specific in our question to an attorney, rather than some general language here. And I think we should direct them specifically to that language in the deed and ask if that is, by today's standards, considered an ironclad understanding between the town of Wellington and the Hall Foundation. And I think we should also challenge the language that refers to the building's contents, because I think that could get sticky. Obviously, when we got the school, when the town obtained the school and it was deeded to us, it was the building, the land, and the contents. And if the contents revert back some, 70 years later, the contents, the original contents are long gone. And the contents today are vastly different than what they would have been at the time that deed was executed. So I think that's a piece of the language that's pertinent to getting a legal opinion. As far as the rest of it, I don't see anything extraordinary about including a rescission clause like this. I think we actually have one in the library as well, in that deed. So I don't see that as being a sticking point. I think there needs to be a commitment, as Scott Tolman suggested, about the duration of our using that building as a school if the state's going to give us any money. And Scott can probably speak to that better than I could. I know he replied to you, Catherine, and because of the questions I had raised. And, you know, I just don't like giving a document to an attorney and say, give me your interpretation of this, if we don't have a specific goal in mind. You should ask the question that you really need the answer on, not just the general. Tell us what this deed means. The language to me is pretty clear.
Thank you, Ralph. I hear what you're saying with your request, and you know, the flip side of that request of being so specific is that that's exactly what you're going to get. You ask a specific question, you're going to get a specific answer and nothing more. And so there is some value to keeping it somewhat high level and asking people to evaluate this. Then that way the attorney can come back and they can evaluate every paragraph and give us their response to each one of these paragraphs and how they relate to each other and how it fits into the modern legal language and if it still even applies. But if we start asking and start dictating specific requests of the attorney, they're going to only give us what we asked them for. That's just my side. I'd like to hear from anybody else on the committee if what they think. Erica?
So I am in agreement with Catherine. I don't discount the things that Ralph is talking about, and we know what to ask for. I have the utmost confidence in Catherine and Phil when they work with the attorney that that's what they will be asking for, the questions that came out of that meeting at OSCGR. So our motion, I think, speaks to what it is that we need. And then when they are working with our attorney, they will be asking the very specific questions of the information we're looking for. And that feedback from our committee, I think, is what's important. But I don't think the motion needs to be so constrictive.
Thank you, Erica.
I'm not arguing the motion as much as I am making sure that the right questions are asked. And I would like to see the opinion when it's issued as well.
Absolutely. It's going to be shared with the committee, so.
Gary
Scott-
has the same.
Gary, sorry. Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I share Ralph's sentiments there that, you know, I'm fine with the motion, but what we really need to instruct them on what we're looking for here. And I don't doubt that will happen, but I think that, you know, just as a directive from the committee to Catherine or, you know, whoever's going to speak with the attorney, I think that's important to let them know actually what we're looking for.
Anne, thank you, Gary.
I would just like to be sure that there's no way that they can withdraw from the deed once we've made all the renovations to the school. That would be my only concern. If we make that investment. And
Are you talking about the Hall Foundation?
right, yeah.
So you want to confirm that the Hall Foundation cannot withdraw from the deed after it's renovated?
Right, and you had mentioned something about a period of time, but I think even with a period of time, it's a little,
Can you say what you mean by that? Withdraw from the deed, Ann? What do you mean by that?
I would think that the deed is a two-way street, like we have the right to withdraw from the relationship and no longer use the building as a school. And my question is, do they also have the right to leave the partnership? You know, especially after we've made the, I don't want to use the word renovations, but we've.
Thank you.
Improvements.
We've
Once
spent money.
Yes, the state's money. Yep.
Got it.
All right, we can certainly ask that.
I mean, I have faith in them, but just since it's a legal
Right.
question, that would be a legal question.
Okay, any other discussion, Brianna?
Justin as well?
So if we have lawyers take a look at this language and help us better understand it and translate it to modern day language, it seems to me that that understanding would have to be agreed upon by the Hall Foundation and their legal counsel as well. Is that right? I mean, what our lawyer says, it says has to be in agreement with the folks who are responsible for it.
I'm not sure if that's the case. I mean, we're seeking legal counsel to get an opinion, and it's really his opinion. I would say that if we were to go into a legal agreement where we have to sign something, then yes, both attorneys need to be on the same page. But I'm not sure what you were saying, Brianna, is accurate. I mean, if somebody else, I don't know, Scott, if you have any input on Brianna's question. But I don't know that the Hall Foundation's legal would have to be in agreement per se. But that's a good point you bring up.
I'm just thinking if their interpretation is different, that's not good.
Right.
Just thinking out loud, I guess.
Just Wayne, Catherine,
Yeah.
the town has legal ownership of the building, right? So the deed only reverts back to the foundation at such time as the town no longer uses the building as a school. So I think, and I would defer to our attorney, maybe this is what we ask him, that any provisions moving forward are that of the town. If we wanted to ask the Hall Foundation if they wanted to change the deed, but I don't know that they can back out of a deed they don't have full ownership of while we're still using it as a school. So the legal rights to the building are that of the town until such time as that clause comes into effect. And I think that's what we asked them to weigh in on, where as long as we're using it as a school, what avenues does the other party on the deed have on the property? I think that's what Ann's kind of getting at, to see what they can do and wanting to make sure that they don't try to have an out clause, but they don't have ownership of the building.
Right. Thank you, Erica.
Can we just clarify that it is in fact important to this group here to work with members of the Hall Foundation? It's not an us versus them sort of thing. I think we all understand that. We all agree to that. I see Ms. Castles has joined us this evening, so I want to make sure that's very clear that we're all working with the wonderful Hall Foundation as we move forward.
Yes, I agree with that. But when we're talking about their legal representation, as long as we're using it as a school, those clauses don't come into play.
Right.
So that's what we're asking our attorney is I don't believe there's anything that would be different than what we're doing now, as long as we're using it as a school. So if our end goal was a renovation of that facility and still using it as a school, I don't believe anything would change. And I'm not sure, and we can, again, ask the attorney to weigh in, but I don't believe anything would kick in that would allow them to alter the deed for a facility that we own. So I think most of these issues, those would come into play where we would work with them cooperatively together when we stop using the building for its original intended purpose.
Thank you, Erica. Does that help, Brianna?
Yes, thank you.
Justin?
The biggest thing I see with the talks of what we're doing and what I see in the deed is the state worrying about their vested interest in what we're doing here. And I do have concerns with just giving them the blanket statement of, can you review the deed for us and give us your input? I think and would like them to review the deed, but I do think that we need to make sure that they're giving us help with the sticking points that the state would have on us.
Thank you, Justin. Scott?
Thank you, Catherine. Maybe I can clarify a few things. The state, when we spoke about this with them, they said, write a letter and we want to, and request that the state give an interpretation. But prior to that, they wanted the town attorney or a legal representative from the town to kind of present their own opinion. The question I see, and it gets very deep into state statute, is normally the Board of Education or the town owns the school, and then the state agrees to fund a portion of the school. And as Ralph noted, there's typically a 20-year period where, if you did a full renovation, the state says, well, you can't come back and ask for more money on the school for the next 20 years. They also state that for some reason, and again, this is a real long shot, but for some reason, if in fact, and I'm just going to pick a point in time, if you stopped using the school after 10 years, then you would prorate all the money that the state paid for those renovations or the project, and you'd have to pay the state back. The key here, though, is that the town would still own 50%. What the state has funded, the state is given to the town as an entity of the town. In this case, the real question that I see, and again, I think it goes very deep into state statute. I'm not a lawyer, certainly, but identified this as an issue that I think we've got to get clarified. But in this case, if, again, long shot, but even if that long shot exists, if the project ended after 10 years and the state came back and said, okay, Willington, you owe us X amount of millions of dollars, but all of the money that, for that first 10-year period, including potentially, as Ralph had noted, all the furniture, technology, equipment, all that, would go to a private entity. So those state dollars then would transfer from the town to a private entity, being the foundation. And that's where I see, is there something in the state statutes? This is muddy, uncharted waters. And again, this is where I think we need the attorneys to chime in and say, what are the pitfalls here with this whole thing? And it's really with that in mind. So it's the town attorney or the attorney Halloran and Sage that you're looking to hire that are very good in these types of questions. But just I think potentially, Catherine, I know you've been writing down, I think submitting maybe a list of some of these specific concerns, but then really globally saying to them, okay, here's the scenario. We're going to go for state funding. What happens if, or what are the pitfalls of this relationship, assuming we get support from the state and the state puts in state dollars going to the town of Willington, with the very remote possibility, but it would still exist, that if that relationship severed, a lot of that state dollars would transfer from Willington to a private entity.
Thank you, Scott. And maybe we take all the questions that have been brought to the table today, and that gets put into a document that we give to Halloran Sage and say, these are the questions we want you to address. But as Erica mentioned, I'm not sure how we put that into the motion. I can read the motion again. The key words to the motion are to review and interpret the existing Hall School deed and to determine a legal opinion of the deed's content. I mean, if you guys have any recommendation of how to modify it, we can certainly hear those.
Catherine?
Yep, Mike?
I don't think we should modify the motion. Other people have said the same thing. It's just, if we have an understanding on this committee that a reasonable list of these questions will be part of the conversation,
Yeah.
and we can see the answers in writing, that's
Yeah.
all that really matters.
Okay.
I think everyone is pretty much in agreement of what the things are concerned about. So I think we've beaten the horse just exactly to the right place, and I think we should get on with the meeting. Move
Okay.
and move on.
I agree with Mike. The motion speaks to exactly what we want them to do. You will give them specifics when you reach out to them.
Right.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. We have a first and a second. We've had our discussion. Is there any other discussion on this item before we take a vote? Again, I just want to emphasize this is an estimated amount. They gave us an estimated of how many hours it was going to take and the hourly rate, and it's a simple calculation, and that's how the $600 came up. So I will read the motion one more time and then we'll take a vote. So the motion on the table is to proceed with the legal opinion of Halloran Sage Law Firm to review and interpret the existing Hall Memorial School deed with the town of Wellington to determine a legal opinion of the deed's content and the total estimated amount of $600. So let's take a vote. We'll do a roll call vote. So we'll start with Anne.
Yes.
Brianna,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Ralph,
Aye.
Chris, I'm gonna hold off on you for this week. Who else do we have? And then myself.
Erica,
Erica,
I vote aye.
yes, and I'm a yes as well. I think I've captured everybody in here. So motion carries. All right, let's move on to the next item. Future business items for a future agenda. So we can certainly ask, I'm not sure if we'll have an update from legal in our next meeting, but I can certainly put it on a future business item. Does anybody have anything? Anything else? Maybe
If you're-
update. Sorry, go
All right.
ahead.
If you would just update us on the understanding that was reached between the SBC and Halloran and Sage
Yep,
with respect to the previous motion, that would be great.
sure thing. We'll also get an update on the appraisal when that comes in. And then we'll get an update. I'm not sure again if these items will be ready for our next meeting, but certainly it's on an agenda for our future meetings. Update on the phase 1 environmental. Any other items? Brianna, did I see your hand up? Go ahead.
Yeah. Maybe this is just me remembering things that didn't happen. Were we at one point asking the finance subcommittee for report about where we stand? Am I making this up? No? Okay. Well, if I'm making it up and it sounds like a smart idea, can they maybe do that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Now, can I just update? I know I originally got the information shared with Peter. That committee hasn't met, but I know the information was shared back end of June, I believe, beginning of July.
Yeah, and that was used to prepare the request for additional funding to the Board of Finance. All right, any other agenda items for future? Okay. So next item is present to speak. So this is your second opportunity, present to speak. If you would like to speak, just unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Nick, 49 Myrtle. I just wanted to say I like Ralph's contribution tonight. I think he made great points in regarding the communicating with the lawyers. It's also my understanding Chris does not live in Wellington. That's to say putting people on boards that don't live here is concerning. Also, I see you guys seem to be all remote, so no Wellington members can show up to hear what you guys have to say in person that don't have Zoom capabilities. Taking that away from the taxpayers of the town and people you're here to serve. That's it.
Thank you, Nick. Anyone else present to speak? Mike McCoo?
Yeah, I know we don't typically engage in present to speak, but I think a clarification would be needed. I believe that my understanding is that the fact that Chris Tolona is not a Wellington resident is not germane to his appointment on the committee, because just as the last person who took the role he's taking, I believe maybe was also not a Wellington resident, but I'm not 100% sure of that.
That's correct. They were both staff members, and that's the
Right.
position that Chris
It's
Tolona is.
Just a
filling.
clarification on that, not,
Is a staff member. But he works in Wellington. He works in the Wellington schools. So
right.
thank you. Thank you, Mike. Anybody else?
Yeah, my concern is not to Chris himself. It's just the aspect he's not a Wellington resident. Nothing personal.
Thank you. Anybody else present to speak? Hearing no one. Last call, present to speak. All right, I appreciate the feedback and for all of you guys attending, and I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. It's now 7:12. All in favor, say aye.
I'll second,
Yes.
and then vote aye.
All right, so all in favor, say aye.
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 Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yeah, good night.